What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 195 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're talking UFC Vegas 98. Brandon Royval taking on Tatsuro Taira. Good card. Good, fun card. Okay for betting. Have a couple spots. Maybe I'll add a couple more. We'll see. I'm excited to talk about it. But first, let's talk about last card real quick. Last week, we had UFC 307. I won 0.25 units. I had Alex Hernandez to win a unit and a half at 1.9 minus 130. That went well. 30-27 for Hubbard is hard to believe. But last week, the judging was all over the place. As you see, my second bet, where I had Carla Esparza for 1.25 units at plus 157. And I mean, look, I think you can make an argument Tisha won. It was a competitive fight, but I think based on some of the other scorecards we saw throughout that night, Carla's round 3 was certainly better than Joaquin Buckley's round 1, and a couple other spots like that. She outlanded Tisha 20-6 in head strikes in round 3, ended on top, landing elbows. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Kept it small, only 0.25 units for me. Lags, how'd you do?
Quite literally, though. Cookie crumbles, I know you didn't plan that.
I did not plan that. That would have been pretty good, though.
I know, pretty good. So my night not pretty good. However, I think it could have went 3-0 personally. So we'll start off with the one you had mentioned a little bit there with Buckley. So I had Wonderboy plus 3.5 on the point spread, which if it went to a decision, probably wasn't going to cash anyways because we had one rogue judge give Buckley the first.
No, it was going to cash because it was 2-0 Wonderboy, 2-0 Buckley, 1-1.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw 1-1 on. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Other bad beat, in my opinion, I had Pennington money line. I think she deserved to win that. I think I won 4-5, but it is what it is there. I think she just I think Pena, in my opinion, high rolled a lot of the grappling situations in those middle rounds, second, third round, obviously. But it is what it is. And then I also had the GTD in that Hernandez fight, which was
so the Pennington fight. I agree. I thought she won round 1, but I also think, some of the talk we've seen on Twitter about it being a robbery is a bit much. Like, she did get outlanded by 8 strikes. It was a close round. Personally, I thought it was pretty obvious that she landed the harder strikes, but I think there were worse cards on that card, than that one. So
agreed.
John Fagan saying, how many units do I have on Royval and how much reverse CLV? I have not bet him yet. I'm waiting for an optimal line. We'll see. But we'll get into that fight. But guys, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe, and sign up for fightnumbers.com. Great analysis, great tools. They got the trends tool. They got the live odds screen. They've got John Kelly's DFS picks. They've got bets from Pepe and Ozzy. It's a great site. It's well worth the money. You probably will make your money back just by having a subscription there. And for 30% off, use the promo code CLUB, CLUB. And you can get in there with fightnumbers.com. Check it out. Great bunch of guys over there. Now, let's get into this shit. First fight of the night, CJ Vergara, Ramazan Tamarov. Tamarov, another Kazakh coming over. Oh, nope. Sorry. I jumped the gun there. I'm looking at the wrong section of the card. Junior Tafa, Sean Sharaf. Has a line come out for this yet?
I don't think so.
Let me pull up Bet Online real quick and see. Because this was, did have a bet on Junior Tafa against Chris Barnett at minus 260. Had tremendous CLV on that. Was pretty disappointed last night to find out that fight was canceled. But real quick. Oh, we do have a line here. Tafa minus 300, Sharaf plus 250. Yeah, I haven't looked too close at it, but that seems right. To me, Tafa obviously more experienced, glory kickboxer, more overall experience. Unlike Barnett, though, Sharaf actually has some speed and some power, and that's enough for me to not want to play Tafa minus 300. I had a lot of conviction against the 38-year-old heavyweight midget in Chris Barnett with the K1 kickboxer, but not as much here. So passing, he should win. Fuck you, Lou. I have the Mets on one of my screens here. Funny story, Lags. I'm curious your pick here. I was earlier today. I was looking at Mets game 1 of the NLCS. Hypothetically, if they win, is next Wednesday, and I was thinking of buying tickets for my dad and I to go. But I was sitting there and I'm like, man, if I fucking buy tickets for game one at home in the NLCS and then they just spit the bit here in the next 2 games, I'm gonna feel really shitty. Trying to not get too cocky here, but
yeah,
since Lou's on the Phillies,
Huge jinx. I've never once bought tickets like that in advance, and I probably never would. But I would feel horrible.
Yeah, same. That's
Horrible.
That's why
horrible.
I didn't do it.
Absolutely jinxing the team. Can't do it.
But anyway, what do you think of Junior Tafa and Sharaf?
I have not looked at the new opponent, so can't say anything, to be fair.
All right, moving on. We got Corey McKenna taking on Julia Pastri. Current price Pastri minus 130. Comeback on McKenna plus 110. I bet 2.5 units on Corey McKenna at plus 121. I personally think she should be a small favorite here. I'm a fan of Julia Pastri. I think she's a decent prospect. I bet her in her last fight. That didn't go my way. I thought it might. But yeah, I mean, I like her game. She's very tenacious. She can take a shot, throws okay volume. She fights pretty mean, which I like. But I do see some flaws in her game. Namely, she doesn't move her head. She's pretty easy to hit. But the bigger thing, especially in the context of this matchup, is I just don't rate her defensive grappling at all. You know, she's not a bad offensive grappler, but most people who have wanted to take Julia Pastri down have. And off her back, she just tries to play guard and look for submissions there. And I just don't think her guard is very good. You know, our boy Sean Orr told me this earlier in the week, and I agree with him, but her hips look pretty slow there. You know, she doesn't do a great job turning into arm bars. I just don't think her guard is as good as the guard of like someone like a Vanessa Demopoulos, to be frank. And on the McKenna side, look, you know, there are some questions about her IQ. She can be a bit low volume. She's not the best fighter, but she is a good wrestler. I think her top control is pretty good. And, you know, I think most of the IQ issues that people talk about stem from the Elise Reed fight. But, you know, the 3 fights after that, she grappled aggressively from the jump and she won 2 with them and got submitted in 1. Now, maybe there's some market sentiment that her getting submitted quickly by Amorim means there's a good chance she gets submitted here. But honestly, Jacqueline Amorim has probably the best guard in MMA right now in the UFC, or the most dangerous guard. So I don't put a ton of stock in that. I think Pastri is a worse submission grappler than either Kay Hansen or Vanessa Demopoulos were. McKenna was able to ride out on top of both of those women fairly well. Ultimately, look, if McKenna fights stupidly and she gets stuck standing, she's probably going to get out volumed and lose a decision. But I do think she can get takedowns, and I think she's got upside to get like a lot of top time here. So I like the McKenna side. What do you think?
I guess the only pushback I'll have is I don't think she can get a ton of top time. Like, I don't think this is going to be like a grappling like masterclass from McKenna. I mean, her wrestling's okay, but I think it just in general at 115, Pastri should be okay in terms of the wrestling. I'm not going to say she's, you know, going to defend a ton of takedowns, but Jasmine's pretty big, pretty physical. Hossing her around isn't.
What about massive Faria? How about Kalindra Faria holding her down for a round? 0-3 in the UFC. Horrible.
Listen, I think it's. Listen, you're not going to get a ton of pushback from me, John. I don't think Palastri's great. She's just a better striker, in my opinion, in the matchup, and I think it's a close fight. I think McKenna, I think likely needs to dominate in the grappling. Yeah,
I agree with that. Moving on, we got Dan Argueta taking on Cody Haden. Haden coming off the Contender Series where he beat Billy Brand, much to my chagrin because I bet Billy Brand there. Current price, Haden minus 180. The comeback on Argueta plus 155. What are your thoughts here, Legs?
Another similar spot, honestly, to me. I think Dan pretty much needs a wrestling performance, just insane clinic to shut down Haden's offense. I think his boxing is pretty solid, pretty crisp in general. I mean, Argueta is huge, pretty physical, could have some success in the wrestling, but I think he definitely slows down the later the fight goes. I think Haden works the body great, has some solid attritional work. I like him as a prospect. I'm just not trying to lay minus 180 in his debut fight.
Yeah, you can't bet Cody Haden here, in my opinion.
No.
I think you could only bet Argueta. And like there is some footage from early in Haden's regional career of him getting controlled on bottom by Urseg. And I don't, look, Urseg is Urseg, but I mean, that footage was pretty bearish. It's at the same time, though, the kid was super, super young. I think he was like 21 or 22 years old at the time. So like we haven't seen much since then. So I don't really know. You know, on the feet, I think Haden's a much better striker. He's got very crisp hands, very fast hands, throws in combination. And we both know Argueta's just going to come forward, hands down, letting you rock.
No defense.
Yeah. And like in the grappling, so I guess the way I think about it is I don't really know what Haden's game is like on bottom. And maybe it's possible that the true price here is Argueta minus 200 if you can just take him down and control. But what I do see from Haden's game is he looks like a very competent striker and a very competent grappler from what I have seen, you know, in recent years. And so I don't want to project it as definitive, but I feel it's more likely than not he can probably get off his back just fine. And if that's the case, then I think the price is completely fine. I don't really have any interest in taking the shot on Argueta here. He really let me down against Matsumoto, so I am pretty okay with passing this. Moving on, we got Jonathan JSP Pierce. He's taking on Pat Sabatini. Current price, Pierce has been blowing out here all week. He's at minus 178. Come back on Sabatini plus 153. What do you think here, Lex?
Probably one of the more intriguing fights of the card for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to really give any pushback there. It's just a tough one for me. I mean, I see why JSP would be pushing out. Like, I mean, in general, much better striker here. Can probably scramble with Pat, but I don't know. Like, I think like when this fight was a lot closer lined, it made sense to me. I thought it was a competitive fight in the grappling. I think, like I said, JSP slightly better striker. But I think it's a competitive fight here where Pat can have some success in the grappling.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to bet JSP at minus 130, but then the line blew out. I think the price is kind of fine here, honestly. I mean, look, we all know kind of the dynamic. Like, I actually think Pat's the more technical striker. The problem is I think Pat's pretty fragile. I don't really think he has that dog in him on the feet, whereas JSP, you may be able to hit him easy, but he has more than enough dog in him. He's going to go forward, throw with intent, look to hurt you. So, like, if they stay standing, I lean JSP, but I think it's a very interesting fight because on the one hand, I think Pierce can potentially bully Pat on the cage, land knees there, land elbows, just kind of hoss him around there because I do think he's the stronger fighter. On the other, I don't think Pierce's takedown defense is all that good. And he gives his back up to get up, which is concerning. I'll say this for Pierce. He does a very good job of getting height quickly, so it's not easy to lock in back control against him. And maybe that's enough here. And if it is, I think he'll handle business. But, Pat, I heard Liam say this the other night, and I think he's right. I rate the MMA wrestling of Pierce more than Sabatini's for sure. But, dude, as a pure grappler, Pat Sabatini is a much, much better grappler than Pierce is. He's just much more skilled in jiu-jitsu. And so it's one of those fights where, like, well, what if Pierce is defending takedowns like 40%. Like, what if Pat gets a takedown and gets an insta-back take body triangle? And that happens twice. Like, it's something that I think is plausible enough that I don't want to lay minus 170 on Jonathan Pierce and then watch him give up like 11 minutes of control to Sabatini, So it's a pass for me. I think Pierce is going to win. I think he's a rightful favorite, but I don't really want to be involved on it.
So last question for you, John, on that fight. Finishing upside. Who do you think's got more finishing upside? Or you think it's pretty
Pierce,
50-50?
probably. I think Pierce.
Agreed.
Let's see. Because I think you could say in retrospect, if it turns out Sabatini can mug him in the grappling, that like Pat does have it. Like maybe there's that upside there. But I think based on like the known knowns, so to speak, that we have, Pierce, we know he's more durable. We know he hits harder. We know he's way more aggro on the feet. Long fly ball, can of corn. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, I just think we know more about Pierce's ability to finish as opposed to, Pat's in this kind of fight. What's up, Bossy? Good to see you. Moving on. CJ Vergara, Ramazan Tamarov, current price. Tamarov, who is debuting here, he's it's a big price here. Minus 340, comeback on Vergara, plus 280. I kind of want to bet CJ just because it's a debutant he's fighting against. But what I will say is I think CJ Vergara he's got very good physical intangibles, right? Good pressure, very durable, great cardio. He doesn't have very good his skills are terrible though, at everything.
No, high volume too. Can add that.
Yeah, but he tends to give up more volume than he lands,
He's fine going tit for tat, yeah. Like the Vinicius Salvador fight. He's
like if you took Pedro Munoz and took away the lethal leg kicks, power, and jiu-jitsu, like what you'd have is CJ Vergara, a very aggressive game fighter who is very easy to find offensively and kind of very easy to avoid and outmaneuver. So I don't love that. And I feel like there's almost always a case that CJ is better live than pre because he rarely starts well because of how easy he is to hit and kind of avoid. He relies on breaking you to, take over fights. Tamarov, I don't know what to make of him. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it. Like, he seems like a good striker, decent grappler. Obviously the these Kazakh guys have done pretty well since coming over to the UFC so far. His level of competition has been pretty low though, so like I'm not going to play him at mine. I mean, as debutant, I'm not going to play him anyway at Juice, but at minus 340, certainly wouldn't even consider it. It's Vergara or pass for me, but I just look at the two, and Tamarov seems to have decent skills for the UFC, whereas I just don't rate Vergara's skills at all. What are your thoughts?
No, honestly, the same thing as you. And I was thinking of playing Vergara as well, but to your same point, he's a slow starter because he's easy to find, and on top of that, he's bad at cutting the cage off. I'm just awful. But on the Tamarov side, like, the guy's pretty low volume. To your point, strength of schedule has been pretty low. Guy doesn't really offensive grapple that much. Questions about his cardio. What does it look like in a high-paced, extended fight? I told you before the pod started here, I like GTD at like minus 160. I think it's a good way to play the fight.
Jake asked maybe plus 3.5. I mean, yes, but like I also sort of feel like wouldn't live be a better option at that point though? Because it's like, you know, you're relying on him kind of backdooring a decision where, you know, with plus 3.5 or backdooring round 3. But if you think it's that likely he's going to gas, it's almost better to bet him like plus 500 or 600 live after a round, you know, and just roll the dice on that.
And on top of that point, I mean, obviously it's going to be a much worse price than the GTD than probably that plus 3.5. But I think that's essentially what you're playing into for that.
Yeah.
I don't know your thoughts on that one.
No, I agree completely.
You're basically fading a finish on that side. Yeah. Go ahead.
We got Clayton Carpenter taking on Lucas Roca. Current price on Carpenter minus 202. Comeback on Roca plus 172. I played Carpenter big at minus 130. I think the price where it's at now is fine. Like I wouldn't advocate for a bet at minus 200. To me, this entire fight just comes down to development versus kind of undeveloped. You know, I've seen people talk about Roca's striking. I actually did tape on it twice because I saw a couple people I respect be like, "Oh, his striking is good," and then like I looked at it again, and I'm just like, he hits the body, and I know MMA Twitter like gets a hard on for guys that hit the body, but like he's got bad defense. He's very chinny. You know, I don't think his striking is that good. Like maybe he could overwhelm. I mean, he may be. I don't think Carpenter's striking is that good, to be clear. But Clayton Carpenter, it's like on the one side you have Roca, who is a very aggro striker, but has no defense. I've seen the guy dropped 4 or 5 times regionally and knocked out regionally. He just has a bad chin. He used to fight a strawweight. You know, he's a little guy. No defense, no chin, pretty good cardio. But then on the Carpenter side, you have a guy who is super durable, like can just take shots flush on the chin with no problem at all and keep coming forward. Also has elite cardio, and I think hits harder than Roca does. So in terms of the stand-up, maybe I'm misreading it, and Roca is a slightly more skilled fighter there, but Carpenter's got a huge edge in hardware. And then you look at the grappling, and it's like you can just see there's a giant edge there. You know, Roca, very, very easy to get down, very poor hips. He does try to get up right away. He won't play guard, but he gives his back up and he doesn't block hooks. So, you know, against a wrestler who doesn't know how to secure back position with a body triangle, you know, Roca is live to keep getting up. That's what happened in his contenders fight. Kept getting taken down, kept popping up, kept getting taken down at Bittencourt, kept popping up. The fight before that, he fought Matheus da Silva in LFA, and every time da Silva got him down, he locked the body triangle in. Carpenter comes from a big grappling background. He's done a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's a good wrestler. He will put a body triangle in. I just kind of think if he takes the right path here, he's going to get takedowns. He's likely going to get a body triangle and either sub him or ride out rounds. Plus, he's got the best win between the two of them. You know, he beat Edgar Chairez, which in my opinion was a far more punishing version of this matchup. Chairez super durable, super aggro, hits very hard, nasty leg kicks, decent submission game himself. And Clayton stuck in there and banged with him. Then when he needed to, he pivoted to the grappling and kind of owned him there. So, yeah, I think Carpenter in the minus 200 to 250 line range is pretty good. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I think this theme is justified. I mean, to your point in the striking, even though Carpenter's striking might not be great, I think he is slightly more technical than Roca. Like, Roca, to me, both in the grappling and in the striking, just seems like spaz.
And Carpenter's been off for almost 2 years, training at the MMA lab. Like, you know, you'd have to imagine he's better than the last time we saw him.
Yep.
You know,
I think he has a huge wrestling path, like you mentioned. Yep. Completely agree.
Moving on. I'm curious your thoughts here. I have, thoughts, but no firm takes. But we got Themba Gorimbo, minus 350, taking on Nico Price, plus 285. Themba said he's fighting for a title inside a year. Do you think this price is justified against Nico Price?
Well, to that first point, that's hilarious. That's a good one. Is the price justified? Maybe just because Nico's this washed, I'd say probably. But like Gimbo to me doesn't have like crazy knockout power or he's got okay wrestling. I don't think his wrestling's great by any means. And I think he can land takedowns here against Nico. And on the feet, obviously much more durable guy in my opinion. He definitely has durability issues as well. But I mean, this is Nico price or pass, and it's an easy pass. That's my take. People parlaying Themba, you're just fading price, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny, when the line was like -200 like a week ago or so ago, I was like, Nico does look washed, and Themba is like super physical, and he'll push a pace in the grappling. He probably can just bully Nico. I didn't ultimately play it because, look at the guys Themba's beaten so far in the UFC. It's very ugly. His best win's Takashi Sato, and that was not an easy fight. Honestly, it was not an easy fight. Got subbed by AJ Fletcher, who's one of the worst fighters on the roster. I think Themba's best attributes are he hits hard. He's obviously a decent athlete, and, he'll push the grappling on you. Conversely, I think his worst attributes are he's not that skilled. He's very, very easy to hit on the feet. I don't think he's very durable. In the grappling, he's a good hammer, but he's not a great nail, and he gives up position pretty easy when he gets grounded. So, like, I don't really like Themba as a prospect, especially at 33 years old. He's almost not even a prospect. The problem with Nico is he's just old as shit, man. I know everybody's tempted to watch his last fight with Morono and be like, Nico Price is back. But, man, at his age, with the injuries he's had, I think that was as much Alex Morono, also who we're going to get to in a second, also being washed as it was Nico fighting well. Because, dude, I rewatched that last night.
Dude, it was bad. I think Morono is like washed.
Did you think Price looked good in that fight?
No. Like, this is the same kind of situation. This is the same situation, I feel like, where we were at with OSP Kennedy, where, everybody, OSP, turn back the clock. But it's like, did he really look that good? Or was it more of Kennedy not looking good?
I totally agree with you. I thought Price looked terrible in that fight, but, like, Morono looked worse. So, like, I think Price is done. Now, what I will say is, I was chatting with somebody else about this the other night, but Price submission kind of interests me. He does kind of have a slick front choke game, and AJ Fletcher subbed this guy. I really don't think Themba is that good of a grappler. I think he's just more proactive than anything else. Price submission, if we get it at the right number when the domestics start opening it up, I think we could take a pop at it. And I might take a pop at it small. That kind of interests me. Moving on, though. Speaking of Alex Morono and legs, I'll throw it to you here first. Daniel Rodriguez taking on Alex Morono. Current price, D-Rod is a favorite. Where is it? Here he is. Wow, some D-Rod steam coming in. -220, comeback on Morono, +185. Do you think the steam's justified?
I kind of do, but at the same time, I'm fine with the line where it's at, I guess is where I should really say, like where it's at right now. Because rewatching D-Rod's fight, I know we were just talking about Morono, but rewatching D-Rod's last fight with Kelvin, like, D-Rod looks he's in there to fight. He's in there for he's in there for a paycheck more or less, but like he just looks pretty slow. His reaction time doesn't look great. His hands doesn't look as fast. The volume doesn't look great. And you can argue the same thing with Morono, but to me, one guy's way more durable. One guy hits way harder. So give me D-Rod.
Yeah, I was thinking about betting him the other night when it got down to like -190, and my issue, like, I agree with most of your takes. I actually thought he looked okay against Kelvin, because Kelvin's pretty fast, he's got very fast hands. And D-Rod was landing, given as well as he was taking in that fight. And Morono does not have hands that are that fast. He does hit reasonably hard, but he's very slow. And he's a worse boxer than D-Rod. So I was thinking, and the stats scream D-Rod is obviously the side. My issue with it is when Morono, he doesn't usually brawl in the pocket. He kind of skirts the outside. And we have seen a few times now that guys that don't just stand directly in front of D-Rod, he just has a kind of trouble with them, like cutting them off. Now, I don't think Morono is some, masterful distance striker who's going to easily outpoint strike him. But I do think Morono is going to play that lateral game with him, and I think it could cause him some issues. Now, I think he's better. I think he's a fair amount better. I think he should land more strikes and probably the harder strikes. But I don't trust with that dynamic and at his age enough to play -200 or -220 on D-Rod personally. But I think I'm with you. I think he's going to win. Moving on, we got Josh Fremd taking on Abdul Razak Alhassen. Current price on Alhassen minus 163. Comeback on Fremd plus 143. I don't know. I mean, I know some people that like the Fremd side. I know some people that like the Alhassen side. I'm kind of just like, whatever. If Alhassen wasn't 39, I'd lay the wood here. I've even considered it otherwise just because he does throw good leg kicks. He hits very, very hard and he's very durable. Josh Fremd, very open to get hit. Not super durable, doesn't deal with leg kicks great. So, but the other side of that coin is Josh Fremd, a lot younger, a lot taller, a lot longer, and he's probably got some wrestling upside. Alhassen's a very, very poor wrestler. I could see Fremd getting him down a few times here. But I don't really have any interest in the Fremd side. I just feel like even if he's getting takedowns, Alhassen's probably getting up fairly easily. And you're probably looking at a pretty close fight if Fremd wins. He could finish. I just don't rate it that high. Whereas I could see Alhassen getting taken down 5 times and winning a decision off of big shots and optics. And I could also more easily picture Alhassen knocking Fremd out. So for me, I think it's a pass fight for me. I don't really want to lay minus 163 on 39-year-old Razak. But I do think, the physical hardware edges for Alhassen are pretty sizable here. What do you think?
I'm debating it personally, and maybe I end up just passing too. But I think the upside is so clear for Alhassen on side. I mean, whereas Fremd, you pretty much need you need a heavy grappling performance here to really justify the price. I think, like you had mentioned, if Fremd is winning, it's probably a close decision.
Yeah,
and even in that, I think that obviously the big power shots from Alhassen definitely will win him the fight. So yeah, I think the line's fine.
Moving on. We continue on the main card here. Chidi and Kuani taking on Jared Gooden. Current price on Chidi minus 170. Comeback on Gooden plus 145. What are your thoughts here, Legs?
This one is for me an easy pass though, because I've never really liked Chidi. I've never really liked either of these guys, to be quite frank. But on the Chidi side, if you force this guy to actually fight, the guy slows down very, very easily. He doesn't like pace, doesn't like pressure, doesn't like that type of upbeat cardio. But on the Gooden side, I don't think he's capable of pushing that high volume, that high pace in this kind of a fight. And if this is mostly standing, I think Chidi just gets the better of the stand-up.
Yeah, so I mostly agree with that. I bet Chidi in his last fight against McKee, in part because I was like, everybody talks about McKee's going to put a pace on him, but the power gap here is huge. I doubt he's going to be able to do that. And McKee could tell the power gap was big, and I'd have opted to just try to push a clinch-heavy fight with a better clinch fighter and lost. I feel similarly here. I don't think the power gap is big. I think Gooden could hurt and or finish Chidi, but with that fucking hell, sorry, but that's good. But with that being said, I think for Gooden to win this fight, he's either got to clip him, which he could. I don't think Chidi's super durable. And I agree with your point about Chidi's cardio. I think if Gooden takes the right approach here, stays in his face, and is willing to eat some big shots, to, in the sake of, for the sake of it paying off later in the fight,
right,
I think he can do that. But you rarely see guys willing to take big damage, to do that. And this is kind of like one of those situations where, one, Chidi hits hard, so I'm fairly skeptical that Gooden is going to be able to necessarily just do that without getting badly hurt himself. But two, I think Gooden could get scared off pretty easily here. And I think if they play in space, not that I think he's like a bitch or anything. I think Gooden's pretty tough. But, you eat a couple big howitzers from Chidi and suddenly you're not so keen to go get in the pocket with him. And if Gooden stays in space with him, Chidi is he's a much more skilled fighter. Let's be honest. He's a much more skilled striker, much higher output, better kicks. So, yeah, I think the price is fine because I think Chidi's gassy and chinny enough that Gooden could go and put him out here, or maybe just have some moments and take over down the stretch. But I also think the skill difference is significant in this fight, in my opinion. So I lean Chidi. I don't mind anybody taking a shot on Gooden. I thought about it, but I think Chidi's got the tools to get this done. Moving on, we have the biggest favorite on the card, KGD, Grant Dawson, currently minus 400, taking on Rafa Garcia at plus 300. I could see the angle for taking a shot on Rafa here just because he does seem to have an okay get-up game and a reasonable understanding of jiu-jitsu. Plus he's obviously going to be the better striker than Grant Dawson, as most people who fight Grant Dawson are. But I don't really think Dawson's going to have too much trouble taking him down. Tafa will give his back up. We all know Dawson is like a taking machine. I think he should be able to do that here. Maybe Garcia can shin him, but the truth is Garcia, despite being like pretty big, has yet to show any real power efficacy in the UFC. Like he just doesn't really hurt guys on the feet. So I'm skeptical he's going to get the exchanges he needs to do that. I think Dawson's going to win probably handily. The one area that I think could be interesting, and I'm curious your take here, the under kind of interests me a little bit. Because right now the over is minus 260, but and Tafa hasn't gotten subbed yet, but he also hasn't had anybody with the wrestling or jiu-jitsu of Grant Dawson on top of him yet. So I think that's probably more live in the market thinks. And on top of which, it's like, if Grant does get stuck in space, he is a punching bag. So you never know. But yeah, I lean Dawson. I kind of lean under. What do you think?
I think I would just lean more Dawson ITD, and maybe I'm trying to get cute with it, and I'd have to actually look at the prices between the two, but I think I'd much rather have the ITD. I just don't think Tafa has much finishing upside. It's got to be KO or bust, in my opinion, for the finish. But no, I think Dawson, again, to your point, handily wins. I think he can easily get takedowns here, can control Tafa. Back takes pretty free. Shouldn't be much issue. I think this is a very easy matchup, and not quite sure what we're doing here, other than obviously getting Dawson back on track.
All right, moving on. Co-main event. Yep. It is a rebooking. We got the Iron Turtle, Jin Young Park, taking on Brad Tavares. Current price, Park minus 190. Comeback on Tavares, plus 165. What are your thoughts here, Lex?
Well, I think from a moneyline perspective, I think it's Parker pass actually at favorite, because I think, well, first, from a grappling perspective, I don't think Park's going to have much success on Brad, even though Brad is solid takedown defense in general, and he is getting up there in age. I don't think Park's going to have much success in that realm. But in the striking, I think Park is just much cleaner of a boxer, and obviously has much higher durability than Brad. But I think GTD is much safer here at minus 250 versus the minus 190 on Park. I like it. Well, I should say the over 2.5. The GTD is minus 200, but yeah, I like the over 2.5 in a parlay, minus 250.
Yeah, I wanted to get to Park here, but the line just kept getting bet out. Last time, if my recollection serves, it came in a fair amount, towards the fight. So
well, I was going to say, last time it was around like minus 170.
Yeah, so it's minus 190 now. I would probably take him anything better than minus 170. And I say that, look, Tavares has fought the higher level of competition. Obviously, he's more experienced of the two guys. He's a good boxer. He's probably the cleaner boxer of the two guys, to be quite honest. But I just don't think Tavares has it anymore. I think we've been seeing that more and more his last couple fights. Yeah, I forgive him for RoboCop, but it's a common opponent for both of them. I mean, Park fared way better with RoboCop on the feet than Tavares did. And Tavares just seemed to really back away. Early in his career, he never really backed away from the fire because he trusted, his own ability a lot, but he seemed to back out of the fire there and not want anything to do with exchanging with RoboCop. But the more concerning fight to me is that you go back to his fight with Chris Weidman, and he wins the fight clean. He damages Weidman's leg badly, but he lost the boxing there, and he lost it bad. Weidman outlanded him, I think, 31-18 to the head. He landed the far better shots on the feet. He landed the harder shots, and this is a Chris Weidman who had been away for 2.5 years after breaking his leg in half in the ring, in the octagon, and he comes out there and he's outboxing, Tavares, and to me, that's just a sign that it's kind of going downhill for Tavares. I think Park is a good boxer who will push a pace and keep constant pressure on you. I do think he's hittable, though. I think Tavares' overhand right counters should be able to land over Park's jab a fair amount. But there's a huge gap in durability here, in my opinion. Park is very, very durable, and Tavares' durability is pretty obviously declining. I think there's a gap. I shouldn't even say I think. There is a gap in output. I think there's a gap in tenacity. I think of the two, the one most likely to get takedowns is Jin Young Park. So, yeah, I mean, he's on the better trajectory here. He's earlier in his career. He's more durable. He throws more. He's taken a step up in competition, but it's been a long time since Brad Tavares looks – yeah, Pepe says Brad Park can be hurt. He can be, and I agree with that. But I just think it's been a long time since Brad Tavares has actually looked like Brad Tavares. What was the last really good Tavares performance? ACJ, I guess? Back
and not even the Amari fight. And I bet Tavares there too.
Yeah, and he went to a split in that fight. Although that should not have been a split, in my opinion. But
no, it wasn't.
But the truth is, he is on the back end of his career here. I'm not, like I said, I'm not laying minus 190, but if it got under minus 170, Yeah, and Pepe mentioned the Bruno Silva loss. Really awful look for him to come out there and just get like bullied around but which, by the way, has aged horribly because Bruno Silva has looked like a bot in the time since then. So yeah, Eileen Park, minus 165 or better. I'd be in. I think he's going to take care of business here, though. In my opinion, it's favored to pass. I understand the takes, but
yeah, and not to deter you, obviously, from the money line side, but like, why not just a Park decision? Unless you think the KO is that high and Brad's like durability is that declining, that I mean, I don't think Park's a big hitter by any means.
Yeah, I tend. Well, he's hurt some guys, but I agree, not a big hitter.
Yeah.
But I think he could hurt Brad. Honestly, I don't know how likely it is he finishes Brad, but I think he could hurt him. Moving on, though, we got the main event. Tatsuro Taira coming off of breaking my heart and my boy Alex Perez's leg, taking on Brandon Royval. Current price on Taira, he is blowing out there. Minus 275, comeback on Royval, plus 235. All I see is Tatsuro Taira takes. Is he the mush of the week, Legs? What do you think?
Well, I hope not, because he's the second leg of that parlay that I had mentioned at minus 260. Personally, I just think that, not to say Royval is a bot, but like in the striking.
Oh, he's a bot. He is a bot.
Absolutely. He's got no defense in the striking. He's got no defense in the grappling. And that to me just screams just perfect on a platter matchup for Taira, because on the feet, Taira's not a great striker, but he's pretty technical. He throws, pretty, good intent, has solid power on the feet. In terms of the grappling, I think he can land takedowns pretty easily here. Can probably get to dominant positions pretty easily. I think he can finish Royval pretty easily again on the ground. So, yeah.
I lean the Royval side personally at the price. Okay. I don't think I would go in on him unless he hits the 250, 260 range, which he might. At that point, I think I might be willing to make a small pre-bet on him. I don't necessarily disagree with any of the takes I've seen about Taira, right? He should get takedowns. He could potentially lock down the back. I guess where my disagreement comes in is like, is Taira capable of having the kind of dogfight with Brandon Royval that Alexandre Pantoja did? I'm pretty skeptical, because that fight, I mean, it was 50-45 on the cards, but like when you watch that fight, the margins on those rounds were pretty tight. And, Pantoja pushed through hell to make that fight happen. Like the pace of that fight was crazy. And I have just not seen Taira fight anywhere close to that pace. So it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe a takedown is around and a back take. It's possible. But Royval is like super, super spastic. He throws a ton of strikes off his back. Taira has looked fairly uncomfortable, in top position against guys who have been really, really high work rates up bottom. Taira has shown he's not immune to being reversed. He got Taira. Is Pepe saying Taira greater than Pantoja? Absolutely not, in my opinion. I think that is a crazy. I hope we get that fight, honestly, unless I bet
That'd be
Royval,
great. That'd be great. That'd be great.
I think Pantoja would whoop that ass personally, but we'll see. Maybe all in due time. If Taira wins this weekend, we're probably going to fit that fight. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Taira is the more talented prospect with the higher ceiling, right? He's got elite jiu-jitsu. He's pretty big for the weight class. He's strong. We've seen Pantoja get grappled before, but I do think the pace at which he's going to have to fight if he doesn't get an early finish is going to be pretty high. I don't think he's going to be able to sit back like he did with Perez and just pick shots here, because Pantoja because Royval just constantly puts volume out there. It's very, very hard to get away fighting a low volume pace against Brandon Royval. We just saw Brandon Morono lose a fight at elevation because he just couldn't keep up with the pace there. So yeah, I don't think it's an easy fight for Taira, honestly. I think it could be easy if he gets to the back early here. Like if he gets his back early in this fight in the first couple minutes, it could look really easy. But I think if this fight extends past, I don't know, a round or two, it's going to look pretty tight and pretty sweaty, in my opinion. I think Royval he's got issues, but I don't know, man. So,
all right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of Royval, as you well know. I faded him in each of his last two fights. I've faded him a million times, but I do just think Taira is starting to get priced like he's the best fighter at flyweight, and I don't think there's a lot of evidence to really support that at this juncture in time. So, yeah, I lean Royval. I mean, I understand Taira. Taira should be favored. Personally, I put him at like minus 185 to minus 200 here. I think that's fine. I think you're approaching minus 300. It's getting a little out of control. So We'll see if I go in on it for a bet. As of now, my only bets are Clayton Carpenter and Corey McKenna. But yeah, what do you got? You have that parlay? Is that it for the moment?
That parlay, as well as the GTD and the Vergara fight.
All right, boys. Well, that's going to do it for us here tonight. We'll be back same time next week, Wednesday, 7. Next week, I think we'll be back at our normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll see.
Yep.
I will actually be at the card next weekend. So,
Oh,
fun fact.
nice.
Yeah, in Vegas.
Fluffy main event.
Fluffy main event. So I am looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to breaking it down. But yeah, guys, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. Oh, Lex, who won the contest? You paid them, right?
Yes, I have. Well, I'm about to send that out right after because I didn't want to do it during the pod. I didn't want to get too distracted here. But yes, we did have a winner. So let me pull up his @ here. So it's @ Nick Aleo.
Let's go. Sorry, I'm watching the Mets.
No, you're good. You're good. So Nick Aleo was the winner. But to no surprise, there was another Twitter account that was trying to be a phony and try to steal. Like literally changed his bio, changed his pictures to try to get the winnings. So how about that?
That
Fan
sounds
for
like
life,
Twitter.
buddy. Fan for life, buddy.
He's done.
But yes, he's
Dead.
done.
But yeah, guys, drop a like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at MMA Fox, Lags at Danny_Lags. We'll be back here same time next week. Good luck if you're following. Good luck if you're fading, but I hope you lose. I will see you next week.
Yes.
Peace.